Good day, everyone. It's Peter Dunn, Pete the Planner, host of the Pete the Planner Show. Welcome. Oh, I've got a special episode for you today. I'm going to bring both people on right now who are going to be on. So we've got Dame, co-host. We've got Joshua Becker, best-selling author. Going to talk about his new book to start the show. Dame, I'll welcome you later. Joshua, hello.
How are you?
I'm good. It's good to be with you again. I don't know how many times we've spoken on this here show, but this is at least 3 or 4. Where are you at, do you think?
I was going to put it at 2 or 3. So, no.
It's also worth noting I have a terrible memory. Yeah, it's all right. Damien, this is your first time talking to Joshua, correct?
It is. You usually don't let me talk to anybody that's popular or important.
So, Joshua, to give people a little background on you, many of our listeners do follow your work. You are primarily known for being one of the world's foremost experts on minimalism and sort of that entire world. You've got a very influential blog, Becoming Minimalist, which has certainly influenced me and influenced so many others. How long have you been writing that blog?
I have been writing that blog for 13 years. 13 years trying to convince people that they'll be happier if they own less stuff.
What did you do before that? Did you have a crossover point where you had like gets into the weird, awkward question time? Like,
yeah.
Did you have a full-time job before that and then a crossover time?
I was a pastor. For 15 years. And I loved pastoring. Always thought I would do it for the rest of my life. So yes, there was a crossover time. I was probably writing about minimalism for about 5 years before doing it full time. Maybe 3 years. Maybe 3 years of even debating if I was gonna switch over and do this full time or not. But it occurred to me that there were a lot of better pastors than me in the world, but not a lot of people writing about minimalism, especially back then.
Yeah, I think your perspective as a pastor, and this is going to be an awkward question. In the faith world, certainly there are well-known pastors that minimalism doesn't really jibe with what their message is. Did you think about that a lot at the time? Of like, most popular pastors there are about this sort of abundance mentality, even in material possessions, and here you are saying, "Get rid of your stuff and you'll be happier."
Oh, interesting. There was interesting, probably not a ton of that in my own personal thinking. There was the individual side of my faith of, hey, like, how can I be a pastor and teach what Jesus said about caring for the poor and taking care of others, and yet still buying more and more stuff and bigger houses and just filling it with more and more clutter. Like, there was just that personal faith. There was probably a larger corporate view of the church as a whole. Like, hey, this is probably a thing. This is a part that we're all missing. Like, we're all just living pretty typical American suburban lives, at least where I was living at the time, and yet trying to say that we're separated from it. So there was those two aspects. I mean, I always kind of knew, like, the health and wealth preachers that, hey, come to Jesus and you'll have a lot of money and you'll never get sick, and always had a problem with a lot of that thinking, but never really applied it personally at the beginning to minimalism.
Sure. Well, awesome. Well, let's start the show here in a second, and we're going to talk about your book. So I will re-welcome you to our radio listeners for this weekend and our podcast listeners who will pick up the podcast this coming Tuesday, which also happens to be the day your book comes out. So this is all fits together. Beautiful. Are you excited for the giant bump of 7 additional sales that you'll get on Tuesday?
I will look for them.
Please don't, because I don't want the email from you like, hey, thanks, nothing. All right, let's start the show in 3, 2, 1. This week on the Pete the Planner Show, we answer your money questions. Here's how the show works. You email us, askpete@petetheplanner.com. That's askpete@petetheplanner.com. And here's what happens. Well, sometimes we don't even answer your question because we have a compelling guest and we're like, you know what? Forget your questions for 1 week. Let's talk to incredibly interesting people. Speaking of incredibly interesting people, more specifically, that person's husband, Damian Dunn. Hello, Dame.
I really did not think you were going to start with me. I thought you were going to lean into the guest.
No, I was saying that your wife's interesting, and you're here too. Hello, Dame.
Hey, Pete.
Good to be with you. You're interesting, of
Yeah.
course. And our special guest is best-selling author Joshua Becker, primarily known for all of his work in the world of minimalism. His new book comes out April 19th, Things That Matter, Overcoming Distraction to Pursue a More Meaningful Life. Welcome back to the show, Joshua.
Well, thank you. We were debating a little bit off air how many times I've been on, and I usually no one has me back. So it's good to be here.
That's true. So I got to think. I'm I've seen the new book and I'm excited about it, and it feels so inspired from what we've all collectively just been through of redefining like what matters when everything's in chaos starting in March of 2020 and you're questioning everything. How can you not restack your life and reprioritize it? And I feel like that's what the book really gets at the heart of. Like, how do you really determine things that matter? How influenced were you by 2020?
The book started before 2020. At least the idea for the book started before 2020. I think for me, the pandemic 2020, I like to say, I don't think it ever necessarily changed what was important to me, but it certainly made what was important to me more prevalent, more on the forefront of my mind. I think relationships were so interesting during the pandemic when relationships are like always available and we can hang out with friends anytime we want at the coffee shop. We never do because it's just like in the back of our mind and always available to us. But then relationships became like almost a chore, difficult. Like, how long do I have to wait to go out before I see someone? And what test do I need to get before I see someone? And like, it really said, hey, these are important to me and it's worth going through these steps to get there.
So there are 8 common distractions that you suggest prevent people from enjoying the things that truly matter. I'd love to go through them if that's okay. I don't know how this works. It's just like a spoiler alert. We of course want people to buy the book that comes out on April 19th, wherever you happen to buy books. But can we go through some of these?
Absolutely. It'd be good because I think different distractions hit different people at different times and realize them. And so, sure, we can spoil the whole thing. I don't care.
All right. Full disclosure here. Full disclosure. I was reviewing this list this morning, preparing for the interview. And Dame, that is surprising that I actually prepared for an interview.
Entirely. Josh should be very, very happy that you put some
very
effort into
honored
the show today.
Joshua, I feel seen. I feel like when you decluttered your home with like security cameras or whatever, you put them in my home, and I've just looked into my soul for the last 2 years because many of these things that prevent people from really understanding what matters to them, they're all on this list. So go ahead and tell everyone what I struggle with. So start with number 1.
The book is about how I asked the question, how do we get to the end of our lives with fewer regrets? Like, how do we get to the end of our lives and be satisfied, fulfilled with the decisions that we made? Not that we don't make any mistakes, but just in a general arching theme. And it came down to we choose things that matter, and then we remove the distractions that keep us from pursuing those things. And so there's 8 distractions in the book. And the first one is the distraction of fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of getting started, fear of even pursuing those things that matter most to us.
You know, what's interesting about this is a fear of failure, very common topic people talk about. And for some, it prevents them from taking action. And by the way, this is not about me, despite the fact that the show is named after me and I'm all of a sudden making it about me. But I don't become inactive out of fear. What happens for me is fear is what ruins the journey. I'm always so aggravated because the fear that it's not going to go the way I want, despite the fact that I'm doing everything I can to make it go the way I want.
Yeah, fear shows up in a lot of different ways. Keeps people from getting started. Some of the fascinating research I discovered in the book is that, in a lot of ways, fear of failure causes us to set pretty small goals for our life because it's easier to think, oh, I can do this little thing without failing, as opposed to dreaming and really living up to our fullest potential. I interviewed a guy for the book who pretty high, well ranking in most of the organizations and businesses that he's worked in, and yet he's like, man, I'm afraid every day that I'm going to be found out that I'm actually a failure. And it was interesting how success didn't stop the fear. It was something that he had to battle with. Even the more successful he got, the more fearful he became.
I don't remember sitting for that interview, but I'm glad you were able to capture it in your book. Also, the first time you and I spoke, you told the story of when your journey for minimalism started. I think you were cleaning out your garage or something like that, or a particular room. And something you actually spoke about to me then was this concept of the fear of getting rid of something, is that this fear that you're going to somehow miss it, or that your meaning will be sucked out of your life because you've gotten rid of something. And the glory of minimalism is once you get over that hump and you get rid of the thing that you fear will somehow impact you in its absence, you realize, well, it's sort of an irrational fear. I'm not going to miss it at all. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Or even there's a different fear. I try to help people understand. Right. Just the other day, someone stopped me and they're like, hey, how do I get rid of all this stuff I'm afraid that I'm going to need in the future? And I said, man, there's a part where we should probably be afraid of just keeping a whole bunch of junk that we don't need. Like it's worth the risk. I think in some ways I'd rather, not carry a burden full of clutter going forward every day of my life, and maybe miss one or two things. Different ways to look at fear, for sure.
Next on your list of common distractions, you say past mistakes can bog people down.
Yeah, this was we did a nationwide survey for the book, and this was really the most heartbreaking of the survey results. That, at least in my estimation, 60% of Americans say that they are held back from the future they want because of past mistakes they've committed. And 55% of people say that they are held back from the future they want because of past mistakes committed against them. And that is a lot. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of potential being bottled up, either by something that we did on our own or something that was done to us, which is probably even more sad. And that's just the people who recognize it, right? So,
yeah, you think about that, and then it starts to like, okay, are you extending grace to those that maybe did something against you? But then at the deeper, harder concept is, are you extending grace to yourself?
Yeah. Our past certainly shapes who we are in the present, but I don't think it needs to keep us from being our best selves in the future. It should help us get there. I mean, that's easier said than done, obviously, but certainly that's a mistake that I wanted to talk about. Actually, that one came from my publisher and my editor. She was like, hey, are you going to talk about this issue? And I'm like, I am now, because you're totally right. That's a big one for people.
That's a good editor. By the way, did that person edit any of your past works, or is this just a new editor to you?
Same editor on all of my books.
You're a blessed man. That is phenomenal.
It's the one requirement I have of my publisher that I need to work with.
Well, let's do this. If it's all right, Joshua, if you hang out through the break, we'll come back, hit the other common distractions. Joshua Becker joining us, talking about his new book, Things That Matter, Overcoming Distraction to Pursue a More Meaningful Life. We'll even let Dame talk. Coming up after the break, right here on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. Dame, I love these segments. I love it.
Let's get into some of Dame's issues, can we?
I was actually thinking, as you're talking about, getting rid of stuff and them being scared of getting rid of stuff. And my dad passed away a number of years ago, and I inherited all his stuff, and he had a small business. And I recognized that he kept stuff around because he thought he might need it someday in his business. And then I inherited that stuff, and I inherited the business. And then I couldn't get rid of that stuff because I thought I might need it someday too. And I knew he would never need it. But then it was my stuff, and I didn't want to get rid of it because I thought I would need it. So I'm like, man, this is something that just you inherit that stuff some of those fears along with all the stuff that comes with it for any number of reasons, whether there's an emotional attachment or a professional attachment or whatever it is. But I hadn't really recognized that in my life until you just started talking about it.
Jeez, Dame. That's good stuff. I mean, that's why being so introspective about what matters, I think, can, especially using something like Joshua's book to guide that conversation. I think that's why it's a helpful exercise. Otherwise, you're just sitting there in the dark listening to REM, getting sad. But if you're taking sort of some structure around it, Joshua, I want to ask you this not on the air, but on the podcast instead, because you can tell me to not ask you this. There's a very popular book that I've read that I was very reluctant to read because I hated the title. It was The Subtle Art of, that book. I just like, people call me a square. I just like, I didn't want to read it because I didn't like the title. I read it, and it really goes into these things of like trying to give your attention to the things that impact you or that should impact you. I'm curious, have you ever read that work?
No.
Similar.
Haven't.
I'm guessing you had
Same reason. Yeah.
The same reason.
Yeah.
I finally broke down. I had a coworker. She's like, just read it. You'll like it. I'm like, I don't know. I got a grandma rule. I can't read stuff like that when my grandma's living. I can't do it.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
All right, let's come back. We are on to number three here. So let me take a note, and then we're good to go in 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner Show, joined by Damian Dunn. Damian, it's good to be with you again.
Yeah, it's great to be here, taking a week off, and getting to talk every minute for a segment. It's a nice change.
Yeah, we've been off the air for 2 weeks. I was on vacation. I have a great bald eagle story to tell you upon when you and I talk again. But forget that. We're talking to best-selling author Joshua Becker, who joins us on the show again. I think it's 2 or 3 times in the last several years. Joshua's new book comes out April 19th. I encourage you to get it. It's called Things That Matter: Overcoming Distraction to Pursue a More Meaningful Life. Joshua is one of the foremost experts in the world on minimalism. His work has meant a lot to me personally. That's why I share it with you again. Joshua, we're talking about the 8 common distractions that lead to people not living the satisfying, fulfilling life that they want. We covered fear and past mistakes in the first segment. Number 3, you note that happiness itself can be a common distraction.
Yeah. Or as I define it in the book, looking for happiness in selfish pursuits. Pretty much every positive psychology study comes back with the same findings, that when we live generous, giving lives that help others and serve others, that this is when we always end up being the most satisfied in the long run with the life that we live and the way we spend our time and money.
Any chance in that chapter you touched on influencers and this pursuit of perceived happiness, which also seems really self-involved?
Just the whole industry around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes up. I don't go into a deep dive into our current social understanding of happiness and whether it's rooted in history or mankind's experience for the last several thousand years. But yeah, certainly it sparked the idea and brought it up, and it's good. I look at 4 different a lot of studies that I use in that chapter to try to make my point. 60% of people say they'll be happier if they live their lives helping others, but seeing the data behind it, I think was pretty helpful. So I did a lot of that in that chapter, probably more than any other chapters actually.
I'm obsessed with that particular topic of the things people do to really have happiness be the end all be all goal, and how myopic that can be. I think about a personal conversation I had years ago with a friend and his personal pursuit of happiness and the means of which he was achieving it and the lives he was ruining to to achieve his own happiness. And since then, I've really been quite introspective about people's pursuit of happiness.
Yeah. I try to make the point in the book that I think that happiness is what follows a life lived for things that matter. Knowing that we pursued things that bring our lives significance and meaning and fulfillment. That when we do that, then this is where we discover happiness the best.
I would also note that we just talked in the previous segment about past mistakes and letting those go. sometimes that pursuit of fulfilling happiness, of serving others, you can get in your own head about how you used to do it and it wasn't the right way. And so that certainly that matters as well. The fourth thing you note that can be a distraction, which I don't know, Dame and I know a thing or two about this, is money. Money can certainly be a distraction for people as they try to find out what really matters in their life.
Yeah, I think when people hear the book, Things That Matter, Overcoming Distraction to Pursue a More Meaningful Life, they think to themselves, oh, that's a book I need to read because I need to put my phone away more often, and which is true. And there's certainly a chapter on that. But as listeners can tell, the book goes into much deeper topics than how do I put my phone away. And so, yeah, money was going to be a big chapter for me, just not to jump the gun, but the next chapter is about possessions, and found minimalism and started owning fewer possessions, which the next question became, well, what am I going to do with my money? If I'm not using my money to buy a bunch of stuff that I don't need, what's the connection there? And even the connection to work, and what's the point of work if it's not to have a bunch of money to buy a whole bunch of stuff? I've always been fascinated with the stat that 78% of Americans experience financial related stress. Probably a few years old by now. I'm not sure what the pandemic has done to that number. But like, we are the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. And somehow 80% of us are still stressed out about money. It's not because we don't have food. It's not because we don't have clothing. It's not because we don't have shelter. Like, it's not because we don't have enough money, at least certainly in 78% of cases. And so what is it? Why is money never enough? How come I'm always stressed that I don't have enough money? Even though I can look at my own life and make twice as much money as I did 10 years ago. And for some reason, I'm still stressed about money. And so the chapter dives into that a little bit more.
Possessions is next on the list of distractions, which really feels like it was the catalyst of your career as a minimalist writer. What do you do with the phrase "my prized possession"? That's a phrase that has always sat strange with me, and I get it. Now, I have a prized possession. Mine happens to be in my studio here. It is the Pringles can that my grandfather left me when he passed away. It was where he kept his pocket change as an accountant, and it's where I learned to budget, was with this Pringles can filled with my grandpa's change. So this is my prized possession, but I'm guessing most people don't really go this route.
Don't go this route with saving money in a Pringles can.
Well, I just like prized possession. It's like, oh, it's my Tesla. Oh, my prized possession is my golf clubs. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. How many, because when you said prized possession, I'm like, I don't really have one. If I had to have one, it would be this thing I grabbed from my grandfather's house when he passed away that I thought represented him most to me. So that is exactly what I thought of, the same thing that came to your mind. Yeah, in those scenarios, I think that, the thing represents the person that we want to be, inspires us to want to be the person that we want to be. And I have a lot less contempt for that than someone who's, sports cars, their prized possession, or whatever it might be. I just had someone just the other day send me an email, and they're like, what's the problem if I have a really big house and a really fancy sports car? Like, what's the problem? They bring me joy. Is that a problem? Is what they said. And I wrote back and I said, I think you can do better. And I don't know if they took it the right way, but in my mind, I was just thinking, I think that there are better things that we can do with our money than just buy a really fancy car or a really bigger television or house. There are just some things that I think lead us to longer range fulfillment than nicer car and nicer house. So it's kind of how I treat that in the chapter.
Dame, what's your prized possession? I figured this is a good opportunity to jump in for you to tell us about your Aston Martin or something.
Yeah. No, I don't know if I would even be ashamed if that was what my prized possession was, if I actually had the chance of doing it. I was trying to figure out what my prized possession was during the conversation, and one of the things that came back to was something that I inherited from my dad. It was a little 22 rifle that I learned to shoot on that he bought when he was probably 13 years old, and has just been around and has a lot of sentimental value to it for me. So does it have any real significant monetary worth? No, not really, but it means the world to me. There was a period of time, there was about a year that I couldn't locate it after he passed away, and I was distraught. It didn't really bubble up, but it tore at me that I couldn't find it. And then one day I found it underneath a blanket. It had been just kind of tucked away, and I broke down. And it was just one of those things that it had finally come home, and it was never going to leave my sight again.
Well, we're going to pick up with that and Joshua Becker right after the break. This is the Pete the Planner Show. I let Dame talk, and he run me into the bumper. But you know what?
It's a perfect story.
It is a perfect story. Cassie just texted me, though, and she said, why did he not say his wedding ring? So I don't know why. You know, I didn't wear a wedding ring for a long time because I lost it. And then I got another one. It's $12, and it's certainly a prized possession.
I had lost mine for a while, too. My son
lost my wedding ring.
Yeah.
I think mine's been off my finger once since I've been married.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the occasion that was off? Were you on a business trip? Like, why did you not have it on?
No.
That's even more curious.
No. So my knuckles are all messed up, and once it went on, it was not going to come off very easily. But my hands were really cold one day, and I was just spinning it around, and it just happened to slide off. And I looked at it and put it right back on, and that was,
oh my gosh,
that was essentially it.
Josh, any chance you can do one more segment with us?
Oh yeah, sure, of course.
I mean, we're leaving people got to know what the final three are.
Absolutely. I told you I'm hanging out all day if you want.
All right, we will do one more segment. Awesome. Well, by the way, for those listening to the podcast and watching the live stream, this is our friend Joshua. He and I have known each other. I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be longer than we really think about it. I feel like I first talked to you maybe 2015. When did you write the book with? You wrote the housing one, but then the one before that. What was that one called?
The More of Less was the first one, and that came out in May 2016.
That's when I talked to you. I think the first time. So, awesome. Well, all right. Let's get back to it. We'll pick it up with number 6 on the listicle. So here we go in 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner Show. Damien, who are you? Dame, how are you?
I'm still here. I'm great.
Damien Dunn joins us as always, no relation. And this week, joined by bestselling author Joshua Becker, author of the new book, Things That Matter, Overcoming Distractions to Pursue a More Meaningful Life. Damien, it occurred to me with our growing company where we have almost doubled in size in the last month. I feel like I'm going to buy a copy of this for everybody because I think it's a really culturally a good place where we want to keep our heads. Joshua, before the break, we talked about some of the biggest distractions that people have in their lives that prevent them from feeling satisfied and fulfilled. Things such as fear, an obsession with past mistakes, the pursuit of happiness potentially the wrong way, money, possessions. You note applause. This one's fascinating. Talk to us about why applause is a distraction.
Well, this is probably the one that that I struggle with the most. I don't want. I don't need to own a whole bunch of stuff anymore. I'm not even that fascinated with having a whole bunch of money in my life. But I always say accolades and applause get me every time. Just wanting to be known. When I see someone else, I tell a story in the book about writing about minimalism and having some success there. And the evening where I saw someone else write about minimalism and get a ton of national attention, and like that really, it really irked me. Like it even a couple weeks focusing on, hey, how come that person is getting all the attention that I should be getting? And when there's nothing wrong with My grandpa used to say, praise is like perfume, smell it, but don't swallow it. And so praise is nice. It's nice to be known. It's nice to be, recognized for the work that you put in your life. But when that becomes the goal, when I'm doing what I'm doing to get noticed or to gain followers or to grow in reputation, then I think this is when we make choices that we regret in the long run. Can't help but think of reality shows and what's been done for the purpose of attention, just to get on television. And probably in some small ways we do that with our lives, even if it's not just to get on television.
This one hits me right between the eyes, because this is a journey that I've certainly been on, and I feel very at peace with where I'm at with my relationship with accolades. At one point in time, it was super important to me. You know what? I have to say, I feel like our journey in terms of being an expert at something and then having others get shine when you are going, I think it seems pretty parallel. And it's when I pulled back and I'm like, I just don't care. I used to get this one point where a person people would often ask me about one particular person within my industry all the time. It used to drive me nuts. Now I sort of laugh about it because it is so predictable that I don't even care. So applause is one that I certainly have gotten better at. How about leisure? How about leisure being a distraction? Isn't life about leisure?
Yeah, we'll see if I can ruffle some feathers culturally with this chapter. We'll find out. CNN called early retirement the new American dream, and it's interesting when the goal of work becomes how quickly can I get out of work. I think that we sell it short, and even our entire philosophy and approach to work becomes something that I only want to do so that I can stop doing it. And there's not a lot of joy in that. And so honestly, I think that we are most satisfied in life when we contribute to the world, and when we do what we do well, to help others and serve others. When we stop seeing work as this is what I do to get the paycheck so that I can buy the thing or go on vacation, but work is love in a lot of ways. I do what I'm good at, so that someone else can do what they're good at, and all of society benefits in the long run. That this is when this becomes my view of work. I think it becomes far more meaningful and significant. And this doesn't mean that we never take rest, but it means that we rest so that we can do better work, not we do our work just so that we can rest and lay on a beach for the rest of our lives. So little different viewpoint than I think a lot of people would say, but this is my approach, and I think a helpful way to think about work.
Dame, you and I happen to share this view as well.
Yes. Yeah, there's as Joshua was talking, I was thinking, there's a number of people that will land firmly in the camp of you got to do something that's going to make money. Don't do what you love. Do what you do that's going to provide a good lifestyle for you. Then there's the other camp that says do what you love. The problem with doing what you love is when you expect to be able to live with the results of living or doing a job where you're getting a great income. But if you are taking Joshua's perspective at this, taking a real hard introspective look at your relationship with things and money, doing what you love becomes very reasonable and a great opportunity for you. So it's all about recognizing what you want to do, what is meaningful, and living within those boundaries. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm. Joshua, I got to guess that during your book tour here and your pre-promotion of the book that you're not going on a lot of fire podcasts.
I've been on a couple. I've been on a few. And it always goes well. They're always like, because they always say retire early doesn't actually mean retire early. They just say it means go do work you love. I'm like, well, that's not what retire means. But anyway, Yeah, and I would say the same thing. If you're in that job where you're just making a ton of money and you'd much rather do something else that's more personally meaningful to you, but you would make less money, then I would say go do that. And which is the exact thing that a lot of the fire folks would say. So a few of them, but not a ton. It always works out okay.
The last thing you note in your book is one of the common distractions that prevent us from living a satisfying and fulfilling life is one that I think many of us consider and struggle with and get better at and then struggle with again. It's
Yeah.
technology. And so how do you approach this in the book that in a way that's maybe different than the typical look at this?
Yeah, it's the book offers I always say the hacks, put a rubber band around your phone and change it to
Oh.
black and white. And like there's some of those things in there, but we've all tried those and they don't work until we like really try to reorient our thinking around technology. And like I say in the book, it's probably more about the distraction of the trivial rather than technology. I mean, I get to do what I do because of technology. We get to have this conversation because of technology. It's the more trivial sides of it. So I encourage people to do two things. Number one, take a tech fast, like take a month away from tech and just put it all away, except what you absolutely need for your boss or your phone or whatever, and reorient your thinking around that. The other thing is I've always found it helpful to notice a difference between creating and consuming online. Like I write online and I create things for social media. And so there's good that we can bring into the world through technology and through social media. It's all the just constantly scrolling, the playing the next 10 levels of Candy Crush, the binging the brand new season on Netflix, like just constantly consuming content. So using technology as a tool to accomplish good things rather than just technology using us as a tool, I think is probably the way to think about it.
As people run out to get their copy of Things That Matter, Overcoming Distractions to Pursue a More Meaningful Life, do you care where they buy the book? I always like to ask authors that. Do you have a preference? If people are going to go on and get it today, I mean, this could get you in trouble with your publisher, but do you have a preference?
No, I know. I don't have a preference. Anywhere and everywhere is fine and good, and wherever they can find it.
All right. Coming up after the break, biggest waste of money of the week and the news. I'm Pete the Planner. All right, Joshua. I was going to say anywhere but the library, but I don't want to throw the library under the bus either. Before I let you go, first of all, thank you for being very generous with your time. Before I let you go, what are you reading right now? Like, I'm just curious.
What am I reading right now? Oh, I'm reading a book. I'm reading a fiction book called The American War, which is I forget the name of the author, but it's a fascinating book. The best nonfiction book that I recently read is The Greatest Salesman in the World. Have you ever read that?
Greatest Salesman in the World.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, it's an older book. I don't know, 50s, 60s, like kind of in that Dale Carnegie era.
Oh, interesting.
And it's real good. It was that's the book that I bought for my staff over here. So very different than I thought it was going to be, but I really enjoyed it. So short, older book, and I don't know, millions of copies sold, something like that. So.
If you have not read Give and Take by Adam Grant,
I haven't.
I think you would really enjoy it based on our discussion here today. So
Yeah,
Give and Take, it talks about those that give of themselves consistently, those that take from the world consistently, and what the outcome can be. So
I like Adam Grant, so I'm in. I'll read it for sure.
Awesome. Hey, man, thank you so much. When you're in India on your book tour this summer, hit us up and we'll try to get some people there for you as well.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Great. We'll be at the one of the universities there. We're doing all college campuses, so that'll be kind of fun.
Awesome. All right, everybody buy Things That Matter. It's a great graduation gift for college graduates or people in your life. Happy Good Friday to you, Joshua, and we'll see you another time.
You got it. Later.
Right, thanks. Dame, there we go.
Just like that.
I like him. I like him to listen to. He is. He makes me feel like I need to settle down, not be so hyper. He's a very, very, very balanced guy. So, all right, Dame. Thank you for your generosity and letting me talk to Joshua with sort of one-on-one. I appreciate that. You always take one for the team.
Yeah, you want to talk to an expert about something, or do you want to talk to me?
Well, you are an expert in many things. I just did want to talk to him. Dame, can I give you the story I've been wanting to tell you about my Florida experience?
Yes, please do.
So, Dame, I went on a vacation with my family, and on said vacation, there is a pickleball court in the community in which we vacationed at. I had never played pickleball in my entire life. Have you ever played pickleball?
I have. It was one of the things that we did in high school in PE.
What?
Yeah.
It's been around that long?
Yeah.
No. Was it
Why
called
would I make that
pickleball?
up?
I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
I believe it, but it's like unbelievable. Was it
Are you
called
telling me
something
that?
Yeah.
No, it's pickleball. Northeast Indiana had something over everybody else. Is that what you're telling me?
Possibly. Was it called a gherkin ball, or was it actually,
No,
it was pickleball?
it was pickleball.
Who knew? Anyway, we're
Me.
playing pickleball. It turns out I'm either a dominant pickleball family or a person, or my family sucks at pickleball, because that's who I was playing with, right?
Mm.
So Mrs. Planner and my daughter are on one side, Ted and I are on the other. Ted and I are killing them. And Mrs. Planner's about to serve, and she just stops. And her and Ollie look up over my head about 25 feet, sort of at an angle there, and just silent and just in shock. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in Florida. Who knows what I'm about to turn around and see? So Ted and I turn around like we're in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We look up. There's this giant bald eagle flying slowly over my head, carrying a giant red fish, like a red drum, in its hands. And it's like, "Rah!" And it was unbelievable. It was like shocking. And Ted and I turn around, and then we can't say anything because we're just like, uh. And then it gets by out of sight. And then all of us are like, whoa. So that was the highlight of my vacation, seeing a giant bald eagle.
I was thinking how majestic that would have been, right up until the point where you imitated the sound that it probably didn't make.
That's true. The only thing more Florida is if it had been open carrying an assault rifle or something like that. But turns out, it wasn't.
Yeah.
All right. So, Dame, I am going to buy this book for everybody on the team.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah. Was there one of those that stuck out to you most that maybe you want to dig a little deeper into personally when he was going through it? The list is fear, past mistakes, happiness, money, possessions, applause, leisure, and technology.
It was probably that fear that I just mentioned earlier. We're still on the podcast. Yeah, this is a podcast segment, not a radio segment.
Yes.
The
Good
more
distinction.
the more that I think about that, there's probably other underlying issues there as well. I mean, how many times may I use fear to allow me to dig into a safety blanket of, well, I probably better not do that. And it's because I just don't want to risk something, and I'm comfortable with the status quo, and I don't see the value in doing it. Whereas getting outside of my comfort zone and taking a chance on some things may end up paying off, exponentially. So I think fear is one of the issues.
I've had a lot of growth in a lot of these areas, but I still lack some real clarity in a couple of fear. But as I talked about on the show, like during the segment, it's for me, it's not about the fear which prevents me from doing something. It's the fear once I'm doing something and how it just beats the hell out of the joy of the journey. But you've now known me long enough and worked alongside of me long enough to know that's the truth.
Yeah. The other one I think that we could probably spend an entire segment talking on is technology and how what a ridiculous distraction that is. I had never heard of put a rubber band around your phone.
Yep. See, really? He said that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting too. But I think his whole point is, yes, we want tactics for little tricks and hacks, but it's a more philosophical, like, I got good at it during the pandemic. I got off social media for whatever. I'm in a bad spot right now. Not awful, but I'm in a bad spot right now.
The thing, I mean, I try and find ways to make make it more reasonable for me to use technology, like using filters on certain words or topics on different social media, so I don't go down those rabbit holes. But wouldn't it just be easier just not to use social media than try and make it fit my perception of how I can responsibly use it?
My daughter's 13 and she came home from school the other day, and in her digital learning class, she said they talked about the dangers of social media and how to use it appropriately. And I was like, that's awesome. And so she goes, so when can I get it? And I was like, man, I wish the class, I mean, this turns into an abstinence versus safe browsing situation. But
Mhm.
I was just like, here's the thing. Once you go down that path, there is no turning
Yeah.
back. And I, as a 44-year-old man who has some wherewithal about him, I can barely handle it. Being a 13-year-old impressionable mind, and the the likes and the thumbs down, like I just like
If you had to pay to use social media sites,
Oh, that's a
how much
great question.
how much would you have to fork out before, or how much would you fork out until you said, you know what? Nope.
Here's the weird thing. I am not a frugal person. I'm not cheap, but I wouldn't pay a dime to use social media.
Yeah, but yet here we are. And
Man, that's a great point.
I mean, so start taking $1 out of your wallet every month and putting it somewhere, or put $5 somewhere to your fee to yourself to use social media,
Like, what do you?
or just delete them off your phone.
What are you? A guy who works at Truebill?
Yeah. Yes. Well,
God, they're
you're gonna
spending
have to
all the money. How can we
you're gonna have
not
to-
get a
yeah, you're
sponsorship
gonna have to
from
pay me
Truebill?
half of it though. You're gonna have to pay me half of whatever you set aside though.
I would not pay a red cent if social media is like, oh, Twitter's now $4.99 a month or whatever, and we're not
Mhm.
going to talk about what's happening with Twitter, and I can't do
Mhm.
it. That's not in the news this week, is it?
No,
I
no,
can't. I can't.
no.
I can't.
I mean, it is in the news, but no, I don't think I put it in my news specifically because I didn't want to talk about how it single-handedly tanked one of my stock picks.
Oh, that's true. That from that angle, it's fine. But
Yeah.
what is going on? I only will talk about with very close personal friends off the air, like you and I did yesterday, because my take is so hot. I can't unleash it on anyone. I wouldn't pay a dime to use social media, which is why it's free, because a lot of other people are in that same boat.
Yeah, I would love for that to change. That social media would think they could increase revenues by charging per interaction or something, but it's never going to happen because they make all their money off us anyway.
You ready to do some radio?
I can't wait for biggest waste of money of the week after talking to a minimalist guy.
I love him.
You could pick literally anything at this point, and it would be
He's
the biggest
so
waste of money of the
calm.
week.
He's so calm. He's the anti-me,
Doesn't his background make sense now?
Totally. I feel like I knew that, but you know how my memory is.
Yeah.
Also, kind of sucks that he's got amazing hair.
Yeah.
So good.
I would, if you could just transplant that right onto your head, would you do it?
Yes, absolutely.
That
My
ex-
eyebrows
that
wouldn't
exact
match, but I'd
style.
be in. Yes.
Yeah.
We
me
were
too.
over the pandemic. We were cleaning out stuff. Just like, what are we gonna do? Hey, let's clean out the bathroom. I'm cleaning out under my sink and in Sarah and I's bathroom, and Ted's in there with me. And I find this different baskets under your sink with crap in it or whatever. And I pull out a basket I set up. I clearly have not been through this basket in years. And there's a hairbrush in there. And Ted grabs it and he goes, "You won't be needing this." I was like, what?
Your time is coming, Ted.
Danza makes a brilliant point here. Joshua has no relationship with Miguel. Very calming. I'll note this. We do have several new people. A lot of growth going on here at Your Money Line, including new branding and logo. For those that are watching the live stream, Dame's got it. We've got a new guy, Greg, who works here. Loves the Miguel.
Really?
Yeah. So now we're going to have to get more Miguel.
Well, see, he told me he's been listening to the show for a while. Did he pick it up because of the show?
Well, he
Or was
drinks
this
our
just-
Miguel here.
Oh,
The House Miguel. So now we need more Miguel.
All right.
But he's in business development, so I drink as much Miguel as you want. Miguel's
That's
for
right.
closers. How do you like that shirt?
You're right. This is incredibly comfortable. I picked it up and I was like, ooh. I went through the box and looked at everything. A lot of nice stuff. This is hands down the winner.
It is. All right, let's do a show because I do have to have some coffee. Not that important though.
No.
Okay. In 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner Show. This week's biggest waste of money of the week, right here on the Pete the Planner Show, is the Therabody TheraFace Pro Facial Massager. Massage guns have become commonplace for dealing with sore muscles. Time out. Dame, you got a massage gun first and you told me about it. Then I went and bought one because you really enjoyed gunning your muscles.
Yeah. You like yours, don't you?
I do. Turns out there are muscles in the face as well. And Therabody's new TheraFace Pro is designed to help those and the skin that covers them. Isn't that weird? Time out. That I know we all have skin on our face. That's a very obvious statement. But to say there's muscles in your face and then the skin that covers them feels like a horror film, doesn't it?
It's just a little quick anatomy lesson for those of you playing at home.
While it can deliver traditional percussive treatment, it also has LED and infrared light attachments, along with a microcurrent attachment that can help reduce blemishes and wrinkles and tighten the skin. Another attachment is designed to remove buildup of dirt, oil, and debris. Man, I wanted to say debris. An FDA-cleared Type 2 medical device, it charges via USB and lasts up to 2 hours per charge. Dame, what do you think a face massager costs?
$74.99.
$399 for a face massager. As a frequent listener to the show says in the live stream right now, Mr. Brian Pinkins, aka a toddler punches to your face. Yeah.
I really want to go inside after the show and have my TD use our full-size massage gun on his face and record it with the slow-mo capability on your phone.
I do feel the need to say, Thomas, if you happen to be listening right now, do not put the massage gun on your face. It will hurt you, my friend. Dame, there's something that you can use to massage your face, and I want to show it to you right now. To do it, I mean, I know we're on the radio. I'm going to remove my glasses, so I now cannot see anything, but I want to show you a massage tool that I have for my face.
Okay.
You just rub your face. And all you do is just rub your face. Like, I mean, I know everyone doesn't have hands, and I'm not being insensitive to that. I'm just saying I have that. I can rub my face, and it's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, why do I need to, like, why would I pay $400 to have something vibrate my face off?
Putting greasy, oily fingers on your skin, and it's clogging your pores, and it's not doing you good, Pete.
Oh, what's it going to hurt my love life? What am I going to do? Not get any more dates? What? Who cares? I'm an old man. It doesn't matter. Dame, what's in the news this week?
Skincare is very important.
No, it's not.
Tax Day 2022 is arriving Monday, April 18th, after having returned to its mid-April home this year after 2 years of delays spurred by the pandemic. For those of you who haven't filed yet, the main thing that makes a practical difference is electronic filing. Taxpayers who file electronically and include direct deposit information typically get their refunds within 21 days. Those who file on paper are facing months-long delays as the IRS races to get through a backlog left over from the 2020 tax year.
That seems like quite the delay.
Yeah. So if you haven't filed, first, clear your calendar. You still got a couple days this weekend to get that taken care of and file electronically. That's your tip from your old Uncle Dame.
Uncle Dame always delivers. What else is in the news?
Well, Pete, one of our favorite topics, the cryptocurrency entrepreneur who bought a non-fungible token, that's an NFT, of Twitter founder Jack Dorsey's first tweet was hoping to sell it for $48 million, more than 16 times the $2.9 million he paid for it. But after an auction that lasted a week, the highest bid offered was a mere, you want to guess?
Yes. I love to guess. Okay.
Hey, he paid $2.9 million. He was hoping to sell it for $48 million after a weeks-long auction. What was the highest bid?
1.5 million.
$280. $280.
Look, I go out of my way to not scream, "We were right, you were wrong." But
additional bids rolled in after the fact, and it was up to around $6,200 as of the time that our news article was published. But it was significantly lower than what the gentleman had hoped for.
do you have his name?
I do. It's Sina Estavi. He owns a couple of Malaysia-based cryptocurrency companies.
Well, he knows money. I mean, look, I would listen to him or her. Is it him or is it her? Like, I don't know.
I believe it's a him, but I
Well,
could be wrong on that.
that guy knows what he's talking about.
Clearly. Leases for 243 million square feet of office space are set to expire in 2022, the most office space to hit the market in a single year since real estate services firm JLL began tracking this data in 2015. Many office tenants whose leases expired last year or in 2020 negotiated extensions of only a year or two rather than renewing at a typical length of 10 years or longer, as they tried to determine how much less space they might need under a hybrid approach. Now, a growing number of tenants are shrinking their offices. Looming lease expirations represent a 40% increase since 2018 and pose a new threat for office landlords and lenders. Pete?
Yeah, I know why you brought this story up. Like, we're in the midst of this right now. Like, we need to expand because we have more people joining us, and so we need more space, but then it's complicated. I actually got new news on this morning I need to share with you when we're having a private moment. Yeah, pretty interesting, because people like the remote and what you have to do. So what we've done, and because I think is what you got to do, you do what's called hoteling. So there's a bunch of common space where everyone works, and then you just reserve call rooms or reserve meeting space. But then when you're hoteling, when you're at these common workspaces, you're basically on top of each other. Like it is everyone has on headphones, and it's like, wow.
It's different.
Yeah, it's on this topic and many other topics. I certainly have my opinion of how I like it, but I don't think my opinion is right. It's just my opinion. I feel this way about everything now. I'm trying to get my place where if I have an opinion about something, it's not that my way is right. It's just the way I like it, as opposed to my way is right and your way is wrong. Your way is not how I think of it. I can think of my way. But when it comes to, I like an office. Like first of all, I want to be at work every day because I love it. But I also want to have an office with a door with a lot more insulation than we happen to have.
Well, there's always next time.
People can hear me snore. What else is in the news?
$110,000, Pete. $110,000.
Let me
That's
guess.
the start. Go ahead.
The starting price for a new type of bicycle with a clock radio in it.
Almost. That's the starting pay for a Walmart truck driver. $110,000. World-class supply chain doesn't come cheap, and that's why the Arkansas-based retail giant is paying buku bucks to attract new drivers and poaching employees from other departments. A little cannibalism inside of Walmart, getting people to transition to truck drivers. Pete, let's leave pay out of this conversation. You ever wanted to jump up into a big rig and drive cross-country?
Absolutely. Yeah. Does this surprise you?
Yeah, it does. Because
really?
Because I'm the same way. I would do it.
Yes. There's a lot of jobs I would love to try, like, and just experience, and not as a novelty, but like, I would love to know what that's like. I mean, I don't want to commit months to it or weeks to it for that matter, but if I had the training, I'd like to do it.
Yeah, me too. I think it'd be a great experience.
Yeah, it's funny. There's certain jobs, like even construction. I'd love to work it. I loved working at my dad's plumbing shop back in the day and like installing air conditioners and stuff. I like that stuff. The work I do now is not with my hands, other than occasionally I do write with my fingers. That got weird. But yeah, there's a lot of jobs I'd try out. Nothing in the medical field, though. I think we talked about a couple weeks ago. I don't want to do anything in the medical field whatsoever, ever, anytime. Can't do it.
I'm still hung up on installing air conditioners at a plumbing shop.
It was a plumbing and HVAC shop. That's all we have time for this week. Buy Joshua Becker's book. If you work for me, you're getting one. Dame, thanks for your contributions. Sending good vibes because good vibes are all that's in the budget. I'm Pete the Planner. This is the show. Look at that. I have to end the show, Dame, and it's one very practical reason. Do you want to guess the practical reason?
A visit to the little Cowboys room?
Yes. I need to go beep boo, beep boo, beep boo.
Yeah.
Go draw. All right.
Interesting phrasing.
I'm gonna just go.
Okay.
Goodbye, stay getting money.